He pressed a loaded gun against the window of a car with a baby inside. 61 minutes later, he was face down on the asphalt in handcuffs, surrounded by federal agents, with his entire career, freedom, and criminal history spread across the hood of his own cruiser. This is the story of the worst decision John Walker ever made, and this will be the last one he made as a free man. After watching this story, you will understand why certain people in this world walk through life completely unafraid, not because nothing can touch them, but because what stands behind them cannot be stopped. Before the story begins, take 1 second to support the channel. Our goal is to reach 5,000 subscribers in the next 30 days, and every single person who subscribes and comments where they're watching from will get a shout-out when we hit that milestone. So hit subscribe, drop your city or country in the comments, and you might see your name featured in our next videos. Let's begin our story. The first thing Walker did wrong was pull her over. The second thing he did wrong was everything that came after. County Road 9, 12:19 a.m., no other cars, no witnesses. No street lamps except one dying fluorescent bolted to the skeleton of an abandoned feed store that had been shut down since 2011. Lucille Bernal had driven this road 100 times. She knew every pothole, every dead zone, every quarter-mile of darkness between Grantville Memorial Hospital and the yellow house on Mercer Lane, where her 4-month-old son Marcus was asleep with a sitter. She was 2 miles from home when the blue lights exploded in her mirror. She did everything right. Blinker on, slow pull to the shoulder, park, dome light on. Both hands on the wheel with her fingers spread wide and her palms facing forward, visible, unthreatening. She had practiced this, not because she was paranoid. Because she was a black woman in America who drove home alone at midnight, and practice was the only insurance available. The officer who approached her car did not say good evening. He said nothing at all. He walked up to her window with his hand already on his holster, not resting on his belt, not casual gripping. The thumb unsnapping the retention strap with a small mechanical click that Lucille heard clearly over the rain. He was heavy-set, gray-bearded, with the particular flushed complexion of a man whose blood pressure had been a problem for years. His name tag read J.A. Walker. His flashlight went directly into her eyes. "Get out of the car!" No license request, no registration, no explanation of the stop, just 3 words delivered like a sentence had already been decided. "Officer, my name is Lucille Bernal. I'm a registered nurse. I've been under the speed limit the entire—" "I said get out." In the backseat, Marcus made a sound. A small, confused sound, the sound of a baby detecting wrong in the air even through sleep. Walker's flashlight moved from Lucille's face to the backseat. It found Marcus in his car seat. It held there, then Walker looked back at Lucille, and something in his eyes shifted into a calculation that turned her blood to ice water. "Step out of the vehicle right now, or I will remove you from it." His hand came off the holster. The gun came out. He pointed it at her window, not past her, not above her, at her. At the glass 6 inches from her face, while her 4-month-old son sat directly behind her in a rear-facing car seat wrapped in a blanket with yellow ducks on it. Lucille Bernal had worked 11 years in emergency medicine. She had stood over patients coding on gurneys and called the time of death, and walked into the hallway, and held her face together long enough to reach the supply closet before she came apart. She knew how to function inside catastrophe. She had trained herself to locate the one piece of the room that was still stable and anchor to it. She anchored to Marcus's breathing. She could hear it through the monitor on her visor, soft, oceanic. In and out, in and out. Completely unaware that a man with a gun was standing 2 feet away from him on a dark road with no witnesses, and a calculation behind his eyes that she could not fully read but could not misread. "Either. This is the last time I'm going to say it." Walker's voice was low now, lower than it had been. The kind of low that is not calm, the kind that is the absence of whatever was holding the calm in place. His backup officer, younger, standing further back near the cruiser, had not moved. Was not moving, was studying the ground with the fixed attention of a man who had made a decision not to see. Lucille opened the door. She stepped out into the rain with her hands raised, palms out, the same position she had held at the wheel. Because she understood that her hands were the only language available to her right now, and she needed every word of it to be legible. The rain hit her scrubs immediately, cold, through to the skin in seconds. Walker grabbed her arm, not a guiding grip. A grab, fingers closing above her elbow with the force of a man who wanted her to feel it, who needed the physical dominance of the contact the way some people need to hear themselves talk. He pushed her toward the front of her car, away from Marcus's door, away from the road, into the shadow between the Camry's hood and the dark wall of the feed store. "You got anything on you I need to know about?" "I have nothing. I'm a nurse. I just finished a 14-hour shift. Where are you coming from at this hour?" "Grantville Memorial." "I told you, don't tell me what you told me." He shoved her forward, one hand on the back of her shoulder, forcing her palms flat against the hood of her own car. "Don't move." He began to search her, not a pat-down, not a standard search. A slow, deliberate physical search of a woman standing in the rain on a dark road with no witnesses, while her infant son sat alone in a car seat 20 feet away. While his backup officer looked at his shoes. Lucille Bernal pressed her palms flat against the wet hood of her car and counted her son's breaths through the monitor in the car and did not make a single sound. But her right hand moved 2 inches toward her pocket. 1 inch, 2, her fingers found her phone. She had 9 seconds. Walker was still behind her. Still running his hands along her sides, her waist, her jacket pockets. With the unhurried thoroughness of a man who believed he owned the next several hours of this woman's life, and had not been given any reason yet to believe otherwise. 9 seconds before he reached the pocket with the phone, she pressed the screen without looking at it. She didn't need to look. The contact was the first one in her favorites, had been the first one for 4 years, since the night she woke up at 2 a.m. to a strange sound in the house and called it before she was even fully conscious and heard his voice answer before the first ring finished. 1 ring, half a ring. "Lou," the voice that came through was low, alert, and carrying a quality that she had tried for years to describe to people who had never heard it. The specific register of a man who had spent 17 years in rooms where every second of inattention had consequences. He was not asleep. She didn't know if Darnell Bernal ever fully slept. "Talk to me." She had 5 seconds now. "County Road 9, Beaumont Feed Store, Officer Walker, badge 4471. He has his gun out." "Marcus is in the car." Walker's hand found the pocket. The phone was gone, in her palm, pressed against the hood of the car under her hand, screen down, still connected. "What did you just do?" Walker grabbed her shoulder and spun her around. "Nothing," Lucille said. Her voice was completely level. On the other end of the open call, in a federal building 22 minutes away, Senior Special Agent Darnell Bernal was already moving, already pulling up the badge number on a secondary screen, already talking in a clipped, quiet voice to 2 people at once, one in his ear, one at a terminal across the room, already reading the flag that came back on Walker's record, a flag that had been buried in a municipal database under 2 layers of interdepartmental filing, and which, when it surfaced, caused the agent at the terminal to stand up from his chair. "Don't move," Darnell said to the agent. Then into the phone, "I'm coming, Lou. 20 minutes. Do not let him put you in that car." Darnell Bernal had just pulled Walker's file. What he found there was so disturbing that 4 agents in the room went silent. "Comment right now. What do you think was in that file? Subscribe." Because what comes out of that file changes everything that happens on County Road 9. Walker was staring at the phone in her hand. "Who was that?" Lucille looked at him. "My husband," she said. John A. Walker was not a rookie who had made a bad judgment call. He was a predator who had spent 23 years making bad judgment calls and getting away with every single one of them. The flag in his file, buried under 2 transfers, and a department-assisted expungement that someone had called in a favor to arrange, contained the names of 7 women. 7 stops on isolated roads in 3 different counties across 11 years. 7 incidents in which evidence had been planted, charges had been filed, and the women involved had faced the full institutional weight of a system that, when they pushed back harder. 4 of them had taken plea deals. 2 had spent time in county jail for possession of substances that a later independent forensic review had flagged as potentially evidence planted, a review that had been quietly shelved when the detective overseeing it was transferred out of state. 1 had never been found after the stop. 1, The case was still technically open, had been open for 8 months. Had been classified as a missing persons case, and then, without explanation and against the objection of the missing woman's family, quietly recategorized as a voluntary departure. The agent who stood up from his terminal when the file surfaced was not standing up because he was surprised. He was standing up because Lucille Bernal was on County Road 9 right now, alone in the rain, with Walker's hand on her shoulder and her baby in the backseat. And the math of that situation had just become something none of them were willing to let continue for another 20 minutes. Darnell Bernal did not go to his car. He went to the operations room. He did not ask for resources. He stated what he needed, and then he was already walking toward the exit while the room moved into action behind him. Because 17 years of building that particular reputation had earned him exactly this. A room that did not ask questions when he moved with that particular quality of intention. A room that understood that whatever was on County Road 9 was not going to wait for paperwork. 3 vehicles, 6 agents, tactical authorization on a federal flag, 18 minutes. Back on County Road 9, Walker had put Lucille against the side of her car and was now moving toward the Camry's rear door. Marcus's door. "I'm going to need to secure the infant while I complete this search," he said. The word secure hung in the rain like smoke. "You are not touching my son?" Lucille's voice came out of somewhere deeper than her chest, somewhere that didn't have fear in it anymore. Something had burned through the fear in the last 4 minutes, burned clean through it, and what was left on the other side was a stillness that was not calm. "You will not touch my son." Walker turned and looked at her. "Ma'am, I need you to step back. You will not touch my son." He took a step toward Marcus's door. Lucille stepped in front of it. Walker was 6 feet tall and 240 pounds, and held a loaded firearm and a badge, and the full institutional authority of a county police department behind him. Lucille Bernal was 5'6", 140 pounds, still in her nursing scrubs, soaked through to the skin. Standing between an armed man and her baby's car door with her arms slightly out at her sides, like a wall that had decided to be human. She did not move. "I'm going to say this one time," Walker said. His voice had gone somewhere else now, past the performance of authority, past the rehearsed commands, into something rower and colder that she recognized from 11 years of medical experience, as the sound a situation makes right before it breaks in the worst direction. "Move away from that door." "No," one word. Walker reached out and grabbed her by the front of her scrubs. The backup officer, who had been standing near the cruiser, who had been studying the ground for 6 solid minutes, who had the body language of a man in the process of disappearing from his own conscience, took one small step forward. Then stopped, then looked at the ground again. Walker shoved Lucille back against the car, not hard enough to put her down, hard enough to send the message that the next one would be. He reached past her for the door handle, and then every light on his cruiser went dark, not flickered, not dimmed, dark all at once. The radio went to static and then to silence. The dashboard went black behind the windshield. The amber lights on the roof stopped their rotation mid-cycle and died. Walker froze. He looked at his cruiser. The backup officer looked at his radio. Tapped it, looked at Walker, looked at the road. Down County Road 9 from the direction of town, the first set of headlights appeared on the horizon, then the second, then the third. Wide-set, flat-beamed, moving at a pace that was neither fast nor slow but had a quality to it, the quality of inevitability, of something that has calculated every variable and found them all acceptable. They were not police lights. Walker's hand left the door handle. His backup officer said very quietly, "Walker." Walker didn't answer. "Walker, those are federal plates." The 3 Suburbans did not stop at a distance. They came in tight, first vehicle pulling up directly behind Walker's cruiser. The second and third fanning out to opposite shoulders of the road, in a formation that closed the geometry of the scene completely. There was no exit on this road that was not now covered. That was not accidental. The deployment had been designed for a road exactly like this one, and the people deploying it had run the satellite image of County Road 9 for the 17 minutes they were in transit. The doors opened. 6 agents in tactical gear hit the asphalt with the coordinated efficiency of people who trained for this specific kind of moment. Not the dramatic, cinematic version of it, but the real version, which is faster and quieter and considerably more absolute. 2 agents went directly to Walker's cruiser, 2 positioned on the road. One moved to the backup officer and said 3 words that made the backup step back immediately and place his hands in a visible, cooperative position. The last agent out of the lead vehicle did not wear tactical gear. Dark jacket, 3 letters across the back, FBI. Darnell Bernal had been described in operational briefings by 3 different field offices over 17 years using variations of the same language. Controlled, precise, 0 unnecessary movement. The specific dangerousness of someone who has removed all waste from the way he carries himself. He was 6'2", wide across the shoulders, and he crossed the wet asphalt of County Road 9 with the stride of a man who had already decided every outcome available in this scene and found only one of them acceptable. He walked past the agents, past Walker's cruiser, past Walker, who had not moved, who was standing exactly where the headlights had frozen him, who was in the process of understanding something enormous and terrible, and he did not look at Walker at all. Not yet. He walked to his wife. He put both hands on her face. She was shaking. Not breaking, she had not broken, would not have broken. He knew that about her the way he knew the load-bearing parts of everything he valued, but shaking. The way a structure shakes when the thing that was stressing it is finally removed. He held her face and looked at her the way a man looks at the one thing in his life he would burn down entire institutions to protect. "I'm here," he said. He was going to take Marcus. 1 second of stillness. Then Darnell Bernal turned around, and Officer John A. Walker, standing in the rain on County Road 9 with federal agents at his cruiser and his electronics dead, and his backup already cooperating and nowhere on this road to go, looked into the face of the man he had made an enemy of, and understood fully and completely and with no remaining ambiguity the catastrophic scale of what he had done tonight. The agent at Walker's cruiser said his name once. Walker didn't move. The agent opened the rear panel of the cruiser, a secondary compartment, not the standard evidence bay. A modified installation that would have been invisible to anyone who hadn't been specifically told. It was there or specifically trained to look for it. Inside this compartment, sealed in evidence bags that were designed to look procedural, were the materials for what the FBI would later describe in their arrest warrant as a targeted evidence fabrication and planting kit. 2 sealed bags of a controlled substance. A throwdown firearm with the serial number chemically removed, and the grip tape replaced with a material that would not hold fingerprints. A prepaid phone containing text messages between Walker and a number that, when traced, would lead investigators to a corrections officer at Grantville County Jail. And a folded piece of paper containing 7 addresses. 7 addresses. Lucille heard the agent read the contents aloud in the flat, procedural voice of someone cataloging rather than announcing. She heard every item. She was standing 20 feet away with Darnell's arm across her shoulders and Marcus held against her chest, and she heard every item. And with each one the picture assembled itself in a way that her brain had been refusing to assemble for the last 40 minutes, because assembling it meant confronting what tonight had actually been. This was not a bad cop on a power trip. This was a hunting operation. She had been a target, selected. This road, this hour, this demographic, this isolated stretch with no working cameras and no neighboring traffic. He had driven this road before choosing it. He had chosen it the way a person chooses a tool for what it was designed to do. The 7 addresses. She thought about the missing woman, the one whose case had been reclassified, 8 months. She looked at Darnell. He was already looking at her. "The 7th address," she said quietly. "I know," he said. An agent was photographing the contents of the compartment. Another was on a phone call, speaking in the compressed, functional language of someone transmitting information that will activate other people in other locations to do other things simultaneously. The backup officer was in the back of a Suburban, no longer looking at the ground, now talking to a woman with a notepad, with the relieved urgency of a man who has been waiting for permission to tell the truth. Walker had not spoken. He was standing in the rain with his wrists behind him, and his face pointed at the asphalt, and the entirety of his constructed life being dismantled item by item 10 feet away from him. And he had not said a single word. Darnell walked over to him. He stood directly in front of Walker and waited until Walker looked up. 7 women, Darnell said, very quietly. I'm going to find out what happened to every single one of them. And everything you did, every favor that was called in, every file that was buried, every supervisor who looked away, I'm going to find all of it. Do you understand me? Walker looked at him. Said nothing. Good, Darnell said. The calls went out at 1:03 a.m., not one call. 11 calls, simultaneously, to 11 different people in 11 different positions of authority. Coordinated from the operations room that had been running since Darnell walked out of the building 40 minutes ago. The police chief of Grantville County received his call at 1:04 a.m. And by 1:06 had been informed that a federal criminal investigation was now active, that the county department was a secondary subject of that investigation, and that any attempt to interfere with, delay, or complicate the federal process would be interpreted as obstruction and treated accordingly. He did not attempt to interfere. The county prosecutor who had signed off on 2 of Walker's prior evidence-planting cases received her call at 1:07 a.m. She did not answer. The agent left a message informing her that she was now a person of interest and that her cooperation in the next 48 hours would be significantly more valuable than her cooperation in the 48 hours following that. She called back at 1:09 a.m. The supervisor who had authorized the department-assisted expungement of Walker's prior flag, who had retired 18 months ago to a lake house in the eastern part of the state, received a visit. Rather than a call, 2 agents arrived at his dock at 2:15 a.m. He opened the door in a bathrobe. He looked at the credentials. He sat down on his own porch steps without being asked. Walker was transported to the federal processing facility at 1:22 a.m. He did not ask for a lawyer in the car. He did not ask for anything. He sat in the back of the Suburban and watched County Road 9 disappear through the rear window, the feed store, the dead street lamp. The stretch of asphalt where he had stood with a gun pointed at a woman's window and calculated that he was untouchable, and he said nothing. In the following 72 hours, the 7th address was investigated. The missing woman, Renee Colquitt, 31 years old, a middle school science teacher and single mother of 2, was located alive at a residence in a neighboring county, where she had been held against her will. Walker was charged with an additional count of kidnapping and unlawful imprisonment. This charge alone carried a federal minimum of 20 years. The corrections officer, whose number was found on the prepaid phone, was arrested at his home the following morning. He provided a full statement within 4 hours. 3 of the 4 women who had taken plea deals filed motions for immediate case review. A federal judge cleared 2 of the cases by the end of the week. The 3rd was cleared within 30 days. The buried forensic review, the one that had been shelved when the overseeing detective was transferred, was reopened. The detective who had ordered the transfer was placed on administrative suspension pending investigation. At the preliminary hearing, Walker's attorney entered a not guilty plea. The federal prosecutor placed 217 pages of evidence on the table in front of the judge, adjusted her glasses, and said, "Your Honor, the government is prepared to proceed." The judge looked at the stack. Looked at Walker, set bail at $3 million, citing flight risk and danger to the community. Walker sat very still in his chair. His attorney put a hand on his arm. Walker didn't move. He was looking at the back of the courtroom, where Lucille Bernal was sitting in the 3rd row with her arms crossed, and her face composed with the particular stillness of a woman who has survived something and arrived on the other side of it, and is now watching the machinery of consequence do what it was built to do. She looked back at him. She did not look away. The Saturday after the hearing, Lucille Bernal did something she had been meaning to do for 3 years. She planted tomatoes, not metaphorically. Actual tomatoes, 4 Roma plants in black nursery pots, that she had bought at the hardware store 2 months ago and kept moving from the porch to the kitchen to the porch because she kept running. Out of daylight or energy or both. She got up at 7, put Marcus in the bouncy seat in the grass beside her, and put her hands in the dirt. It was the most ordinary morning she had had in 6 weeks. Darnell came out at 8 with coffee and sat in the yard chair and watched her work. which was something he did, watched her with the specific quality of attention he gave to things he was grateful to still have. He had been doing it more since County Road 9, not with grief, with presence. There was a difference. "Renee Colquitt called," he said. Lucille looked up from the dirt. "She wanted me to tell you something." "What?" He looked at her over his coffee. "She said if you hadn't called when you called, if Walker had gotten whatever he needed out of that stop without a flag being raised, she doesn't think anyone was coming for her." A pause. "She said she knows you didn't know about her. She just wanted you to know anyway." Lucille was quiet for a long moment. She pressed a seedling into the soil, tamped it down. "Is she okay? She's going home next week. Her kids are with her mother." Marcus made a sound in the bouncy seat, a concentrated, investigative sound. The sound of a baby who has located something interesting about the grass near his foot and is attempting to form a theory about it. Lucille reached over and put one finger in his palm and felt his hand close around it reflexively, automatically. With the total uncomplicated trust of someone who has no reason yet to know the world is anything other than warm. She held it for a moment. Then she went back to planting. The man who had pointed a gun at her window would spend the next 27 years in a federal correctional facility. The system that had protected him for 23 years was now being disassembled by a team of federal investigators who had the file, the forensics, and the cooperation of enough frightened people to take it apart to the foundation. None of that would give back the 8 months Renee Colquitt had lost, or the time the 4 women had spent inside a justice system that had been pointed at them like a weapon. But the machinery was moving. And Lucille was in her yard on a Saturday morning with her hands in the dirt and her son in the grass, and her husband drinking coffee, in a lawn chair watching the whole scene with the quiet, attentive relief of a man who has been in enough dark rooms to know what the light is worth. Some people walk through this world with no outward sign of how protected they are, not because they are hiding it, because the protection is real and quiet and does not need to announce itself. It just arrives, on a dark road in the rain, when it is needed, and it does not leave until the thing that threatened what it loves has been completely, permanently, and irreversibly dismantled. Lucille Bernal never thought of herself as somebody's rescue operation. She was just trying to get home to her baby. But she survived because of who loved her, and Renee Colquitt survived because of the call Lucille made on a dark road when she had 9 seconds and one choice. If this story hit you, you know what to do. Subscribe, share it, and tell us in the comments what should have happened to the supervisor who buried Walker's file for 11 years. Because he's still out there. Drop your verdict below. Justice was served, but was it enough?